Axel Rudakubana should be put down. It is time now to have a debate about capital punishment in addition to all the other things we need to do to start protecting our society from A, uncontrolled immigration, but B, a more general collapse in law and order. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all of my videos as soon as they are released. Well, we have a criminal justice system which principally focuses on the rights of the criminal. And that's not surprising because we have an immigration service that principally concentrates on the rights of the immigrant. We are never interested in putting the ordinary taxpayers first, the good people first, the people that built this country first, and people start getting very, very upset about it. I do not accept that the Southport riots were about misinformation. I believe that the Southport riots were all about the fact that once again our police are prioritising protecting T's rather than protecting us. You know, you've got this stupid thing with YouTube where they insist on us not using certain words in order to, oh, I don't know, it's a load of old waste of time. But anyway, let me tell you first of all what happened in the court today, in my view. So there's going to be lots of reports on it, but I think it's something that's important. Then I'm going to give you some historical context about capital punishment and why I think that I can demonstrate to you that it is not a waste of time, it's a good thing to do. And that includes people who don't have any particular religious view. So as you know, I believe that Axel Rudakubana is an evil man who will be returned to hell at some point, and there's no need to disrupt that process. I believe that he is somebody who ought never to have existed. I don't care about his rights. I'm not interested in who he is. And as I say, I think it would be the most humane thing for the victims and their families to have him put down. A phrase I'm using not just because of the YouTube algorithm, but also because I think that we should look at it in those terms. This is somebody who doesn't really have any right to exist, who has no value to society, and who is just a burden on the taxpayer to cage him for the rest of his life. Provocative language there. But okay, so what happened in court today? I think all of you know that it was the day for the victim's witness, its victim's impact statements, and they gave them with some great emotion, some great care, and some great love. And I think, you know, I suppose this is one of the final things that the mums and dads will do for their children. It's a sad thought that for a 9-year-old, it's one of the final things you would do. But nonetheless, they attempted to turn up and they attempted to do their best to give a good account of themselves and to ensure that he was locked up for a significant amount of time. And he was 52 years, though that doesn't absolutely guarantee that he will never be allowed out of prison. And I think that that is an incredibly worrying thought and something that, even though he's only 18, I think that if I was part of that community, I would be worried about him having any hope. And I think having an ability to get out of prison gives him hope, which in turn would undermine my ability to rehabilitate myself. And you've got to remember, they talk about closure. This isn't closure. I was looking at the case of Sarah Payne. You'll remember Michael Payne. You'll remember him. He's the chap with the mullet, actually. But of course, he campaigned for community notification of SA offenders being coming into your community. And his wife actually got an MBE for it. But of course they split up because of the difficulty in the loss of a child. And I can understand that. He drank himself to death age 45 or 46 years old. And I think that you look at that and you say to yourself, you know, what a great shame that he was never able to get over it. But how would you? Anyone who's a parent, anyone who's a grandparent, you know, to be in that position is just absolutely horrendous. Well, of course, Axel Rudakubana, who's been so pandered to over the years, cowered in his cell for most of the hearing, saying that he was ill and hadn't eaten for 10 days. Now, personally, what I would have done is precisely what Thatcher did with Bobby Sands. Stick a tube down his throat and force feed him. Get him match fit, it doesn't really matter. Tie him up, lock him up, shackle him. Doesn't bother me. In fact, I would chocolate orange, a clockwork orange style. I'd have his eyes held open so he had to watch the proceedings. Doesn't bother me if we have to take a horsewhip to him to get him out to face his punishment. The man is an animal. And that brings me then on to having him put down. Now, first of all, I think given that he is of no value to the world, that is a good thing to do. But what is the principal argument against it? Well, it's not humane. Oh, who cares? He's not very humane. There are countries, Islamic countries, that believe in an eye for tooth, and they would literally subject him to this, exactly what he subjected those girls to. And I think that would be lots of fun. I'd probably stick it on pay-per-view on TV so the people of Southport could watch it. But I think what I worry about is this. When capital punishment was got rid of in the United Kingdom, a couple of things happened. First of all, there were constant appeals, and in the end, it took years for these people to be offed with, and it took a fortune in legal fees, this, legal aid, that, and all that, this sort of thing. And in the end, people said, "Oh, it's cheaper just to leave them in prison." But why is it cheaper? Lawfare. It's exactly the same as with the illegal immigrants. Because what happens with illegal immigrants is you go, well, there's no point in having an immigration services because it takes that long to get rid of them and it costs a fortune. You might as well rehouse them in the United Kingdom. Well, that is lawyers making law, isn't it? Because the Keir Starmers and Matrix Chambers of this world genuinely believe that the best thing that they can do for society is make the law up themselves. This idea of international law, which I think was made up in the Inns of Court in about 1975, this idea that every country has to adhere to a higher law that was created by a bunch of lawyers and their friends in the UN. I don't accept that for 1 minute. But similarly, when we see with laws that the legal profession want to get rid of, what they do is they make the law virtually unenforceable. And that's what they did with capital punishment last time. And that's what you're seeing them do in the United States of America, where they stop doctors from administering a lethal injection, where they won't allow drug companies, where they file 150 appeals so that it takes 30 years for somebody on D row. At the time of the abolition of capital punishment in the United Kingdom, what was said was, well, everyone will get a whole life sentence. Well, of course, that didn't happen. People are now being freed after 14 years. What about Jimmy Mizzen, the guy who did him was only served 14 years and came out and became a drill artist, appearing on the BBC. Well done, by the way, to everybody that complained about that, because the prison service, I should say, the prison service does take that into account. Now, there are people who are going to complain that I'm far right, which of course is less of an insult, given that they complain about all you as well, and I quite like you. But I think that now we have to start being serious about what's going on here. And I think, part of immigration, I would say, is about contribution to society. And I just wonder whether the family of Axel Rudakubana have received enough from the United Kingdom and now need to return to Rwanda? Question mark. Do we start to say to people, well, look, the war is over, it's time to go home? And also, do we say, look, there are some people who, unfortunately, under the values of Christian choice, have chosen to go to hell, and let's just assist them in going there quicker? If you want to talk about what is unhumane, I think it's unhumane to waste Axel Rudakubana's time. He is a worthless creature who needs to go to hell as quickly as possible, and I personally would do it. And the way that it's very easy to ensure that these long drawn-out processes don't take place, they could have just taken him downstairs and shot him in the car park. Easy enough to do if the sentence had been put in. Oh, you can't do that, that's terrible, It's not terrible and wrong. You're talking about somebody who is right at the top of the serious offenders. Look, doing the sentence the next day, as far as I'm concerned, is not a stupid thing to do. And people talk about miscarriages of justice. I accept that. But the number of miscarriages of justice in these cases now, I suspect, is zero. DNA evidence is making it so much better than before. I remember Kelvin McKenzie saying that what we should have is, it should only be for DNA-proved child M that we should have capital punishment for. I think that's an eminently sensible thing. And Axel Rudakubana would be the first candidate. I personally think that Reform UK should bring in a law to not only bring back the death penalty, but also to re-sentence Axel Rudakubana with it. Until next time, goodbye.